Former President Trump being presented with a choice to appear and testify before a Manhattan grand jury next week. This regarding possible criminal charges Trump could face for his role in the payment of what they're calling hush money to Stormy Daniels, who maybe he slept with, maybe he didn't. I don't really care. I don't think anybody else does. But for more on this, let's welcome in prosecutor, Newsmax columnist, and host of KCBQ Radio's The Answer, Wendy Patrick, along with former assistant DA at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, constitutional law attorney, and Newsmax contributor Ameer Benno. Okay, Ameer, let's get right to this. This, to me, I'm not a law guy. I don't have a legal degree or anything, but it sounds like a misdemeanor trying to be combined and trumped up to make it a felony over something that I don't even think is illegal, coming from the same people who have supported the World Economic Forum leadership who flew in escort services to their Davos conference.
Yeah, well, good morning to both of you. It is. I mean, essentially, it's falsifying business records, which in New York is a misdemeanor, and they're going to have a lot of problems with it because, first of all, there's a statute of limitations issue. This happened back in 2016. That's 7 years ago, way past the time period within which they can bring such charges. Second, in order to bump it up to a felony, you have to show that this falsification of business records was done to conceal another crime. And as you correctly pointed out, Carl, it's not a crime to pay hush money to somebody. So it's unclear what Alvin Bragg is going to predicate any sort of felony on. And even if it were a felony, it would be the lowest level felony. And if we're looking at a sentence for this, there's no jail time, if anything. So, maybe there's more to it than just falsifying business records, and we'll know once the indictment comes out. But it's a very weak case, not least of which because the entire case is going to depend on the testimony of Michael Cohen, who is, as we all know, a convicted felon and liar.
Right. Well, Wendy, to that point, let's go back to the fact that, look, maybe he slept with her, maybe he didn't. Nobody cares at this point. And if they do care, they're not going to vote for him anyway. So the issue is let's say they entered into a transaction. Hey, here's an NDA, sign this in exchange for money. Companies do that all the time for, with gardening leave, with separation agreements. Like, what's the crime?
Well, that's what they'll have to answer. And that's why, as you pointed out before the break, he did receive an invitation to attend and give testimony, which, of course, he will not accept. But they're going to have to really spell that out. But will they? I always say, especially when it comes to politics, headlines are not necessarily predictions, especially when you're talking about the unprecedented move of charging a former president who's now a current presidential contender. I mean, Donald Trump is no stranger to litigation. He has been plagued with allegations and insinuations and just these types of court cases ever since he's been in the public eye, whether as a politician or business person. But this is not the kind of case that is going to be taken lightly. My colleague points out some of the legal complications, shall we say. The political ramifications is another reason that everybody's treading very carefully. When this first made headlines, we thought Stormy Daniels, that's so 2016. Why are we talking about it again now that Donald Trump has formally announced as a presidential candidate? It's probably not something that's going to go anywhere fast. I may be wrong. You may want to have me back on to talk about the indictment if it ever comes.
Ironically, too, this comes right after the January 6th stuff all popped up and is getting front seat headlines on basically every network, including here. So speaking of that, Senator Mitch McConnell reacting to the portrayal of the January 6th tapes. This is unbelievable. Watch.
Was it a mistake by Speaker McCarthy to give access to Tucker Carlson of this security footage?
My concern is how it was depicted, which is a different issue. Clearly, the chief of the Capitol Police, in my view, correctly describes what most of us witnessed firsthand on January 6th.
Ameer, okay, so the fact that they hired the January 6th committee, Liz Cheney and friends, hired a TV producer, an ABC TV producer was hired for all these hearings about what they need to know. They were given all the information, or allegedly given the information, to the January 6th committee to prosecute people who did things wrong. Turns out most of what they're saying is contradicted by a lot of these new tapes. At some point, exculpatory evidence rulings have to come in here. Do you think they're going to be able to hold people accountable, indict anybody, charge anybody for falsifying an entire trial?
It's incredible. It's incredible that Mitch McConnell will say, hey, don't pay attention to what's in the video. You know, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, not to Mitch McConnell. Who cares about the video? Just trust our narrative where we're going after the former president for political reasons. This is really outrageous. And hopefully they'll be able to show ineffective assistance of counsel, overturn his waiver of appeal, challenge that conviction, because frankly speaking, they convicted Jacob Chansley of obstructing a governmental of obstructing an official proceeding. And what really happened here is the January 6th committee, by refusing to release all of those videos, every single member of that, they corruptly obstructed an official proceeding, the official proceeding being the prosecution of Jacob Chansley. And so they should be criminally held accountable, every single one of them.
Wendy, I got 10 seconds left. We see Jacob Chansley now on the steps saying, hey, Trump just tweeted for us to go home. They see him thanking cops in a prayer. Is there any liability on any of the people who perceived otherwise?
Well, a picture's worth 1,000 words. A video is priceless. That's my 10-second snippet to stand for the proposition that you can only have informed consent if you're a criminal defendant if you have the facts. And if the January 6th committee didn't release the video, that there's no way we can expect that to have gotten to either of the litigants in this case. So we'll have to take another look at the case.
Unbelievable. We're going to have you guys back to talk about this. Wendy, Ameer, appreciate being here.